Matt Poitras and Ian Mitchell appear closer than ever to cracking the Boston Bruins opening night roster, while I'm here again to say it's far too early to label Fabian Lysell as a bust. The Bruins lost to the Flyers on Monday, and we're going to do our 3 stars recap here on a brand new episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked Beat. Today is Tuesday, October 3rd, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day every day. The podcast is free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, the Bruins lost another preseason game to the Philadelphia Flyers on Monday night. They're back in action tonight, and we're going to recap what happened last night, do our 3 stars look at the game, and bring you all the latest here on the Boston Bruins. Before we get into that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, hockey tweets at Ian C. McLaren. All right, let's get into last night's game. Later on, we'll touch on the lineup for tonight. And Matt Poitras continues to be the story of Boston Bruins training camp. In fact, Fluto Shinzawa of The Athletic posted an article just this morning positing him as the team's second-line center on opening night, bumping Charlie Coyle down to the third line where he's perhaps best suited. Now, those of you who know me, have listened for a while, know that I'm a huge Matt Poitras fan. I live in Guelph, where he is supposed to play junior hockey for the Storm this season, perhaps challenge for the OHL scoring title. And he's been fantastic for the Boston Bruins in preseason play. Last night against the Flyers, he played primarily with Mark McLaughlin and Jesper Boqvist. About 6 minutes, 5-on-5 ice time last night. And that line had an 83.33% shot attempt differential. 5 shot attempts generated, only 1 allowed against the Flyers last night. Now, Poitras individually, he had a shot attempt differential of 66.67. He was on the ice for 12 shot attempts for the Bruins, 6 against. He was also excellent in the faceoff circle, I believe going something like 7 for 8. Now, the one knock or the one questionable area is that he didn't generate any shot attempts on his own. He is unreal at making space. He's a very proficient passer, but you'd perhaps like to see him make some more shot attempts on his own, get the puck on net, especially when playing with McLaughlin and Boqvist. You could understand him feeding Pastrnak, DeBrusk, Zacha, Marchand, whoever he's on a line with, deferring to those more shot-heavy players or guys who have a proven track record of putting the puck in the back of the net. But when you're playing with McLaughlin and Boqvist, both of whom, can score in their own right, you'd like to see him maybe at least get 1 shot attempt on net. But for the time being, Poitras appears to have done more than enough to at least earn a 9-game look for the Boston Bruins to begin the regular season. Now, remember, he can only play in the OHL or the NHL this season. Can't go to the AHL. And if he plays 10 games at the NHL level, then the Bruins burn a year off his entry level contract. So they can give him the 9 games off the start, see if he can hang at the NHL level. Because make no mistake, the competition will get much more difficult beginning October 11th. It's one thing to excel in preseason games against the Philadelphia Flyers, against non-NHL rosters, but it's another to weather the grind of an 82-game season going up against other teams' best 2 centers. Poitras is yet to play against a full NHL lineup, as Shinzawa notes in his article. He's 176 pounds. He's only 19 years old. Can he withstand the rigors of an 82-game season at this point in his development? And there's some real questions about that. The hype is real. Poitras has been very good for the Bruins. You'd even say Krejci-esque for the Bruins so far. He's an amazing puck handler. He can slow the game down, sets up his teammates. He got a secondary power play assist on Morgan Geekie's first period goal, the only goal scored by the Bruins last night. And maybe you put him in the top 6 with Marchand and DeBrusque, or move Zacha to the wing and have Poitras with Zacha and Pasternak, and put Van Riemsdyk down on the third line with Geekie and Frederic. Very real questions to be answered here for the Boston Bruins, and as it happens, Poitras will get another look tonight in a preseason game against the Washington Capitals. He's one of the forwards in the lineup, and we'll talk more about who's in the lineup here later on in the podcast. But last night's first star is Matt Poitras, getting that secondary power play assist, driving play with non-elite wingers, and really making a case here to be on the team to start the season at the very least. And good on him. I know Guelph is likely banking on him returning. They're off to a 2-0 start, ranked 4th in the OHL without him. If he comes back, he could be cooking alongside Max Nemesnikov and newly minted captain Braden Bowman. That will be his spot when he comes back. Could be a very dynamic line. He could win the OHL scoring title despite missing some games. But I wouldn't be surprised here if he gets a handful of games with the Boston Bruins here to begin the season. We're going to talk about the other 2 stars of the game last night, as well as take a look at the lineup for tonight's game against the Washington Capitals coming up here after the break. Back in the summer, I used the GameTime app to purchase City and Color and Ben Harper tickets, as well as baseball tickets here in Toronto, and it was a fantastic experience. The tickets came as advertised, and they were delivered safely and securely to my app for me to put on my phone for easy scanning. GameTime is a fantastic ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the views from your seat before you buy. You know exactly what to expect. All in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. You can buy tickets in seconds with only 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. All you have to do is download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but all you have to do, again, is create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks again for making Locked On Boston Bruins part of your day every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and you can get it free on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. On tomorrow's podcast, we'll do another 3 stars recap of tonight's game against the Washington Capitals. I'll let you know who will be in the lineup here later on today's episode. Looking back at last night's game, it was a big night for Fabian Lysell detractors. In fact, John Buccigross of ESPN going as far as calling Lysell a bust. Let's bring up his tweet here. He said, the Bruins will hope their defense, goaltending, and power play will get off to a good start and build playoff points. Scoring will be a problem unless the power play cooks. Then make a deal at the deadline as they gain cap space. The problem is they have no prospect juice. Fabian Lysell looks like a bust. For me, far too early to be calling Fabian Lysell a bust. And the second star I'm giving to Lysell detractors for generating this conversation, generating clicks, impressions, engagement, but not really based in reality at this point. First of all, the kid's only 20 years old. He has played one season of pro hockey where he had a pretty respectable 14 goals, 23 assists for 37 points in 54 games with Providence. And it's just far too early to label this kid a bust. Yes, he hasn't looked fantastic in the preseason. Yes, he probably needs some more time in the AHL. But when you look at some of the guys drafted in 2021, it's not like there's been many hits so far. There's only, 5 to 7 players who have played regular time. Cole Sillinger, JJ Moser leading with 143 and 125 appearances respectively. Matty Beniers, of course, popped. Mason McTavish, Ken Johnson, Owen Power, Wyatt Johnston, Dylan Gunther, William Eklund, and Atu Ratti are the only players with double-digit appearances so far. You have other guys like Simon Edmondson, Brant Clark, who could make their debuts this season. There's players here that were drafted in the same range as Fabian Lysell, 21st overall, who just haven't popped either. In fact, you look up the lineup, Isaac Rosen hasn't made an appearance yet for the Buffalo Sabres. Tyler Boucher at 10 has not made an appearance for the Ottawa Senators. Brendan Othman, Zachary Balduke, Chaz Lucius, Fedor Svechkov. These are all guys who were taken ahead of Lysell and who haven't sniffed the NHL yet either. So it's pretty unfair to label him a bust when there are several forwards taken above him who also haven't sniffed the NHL. Xavier Bourgault taken right after him. Maki Samoskevich, Zachary Leroux, Oscar Olesen, Chase Stillman, Zachary Dean. These are all guys taken in the first round as well, forwards who haven't played at the NHL level. So I don't know why Lysell is being picked out here by Bucci as a bust. It just doesn't make sense. And it's way, way too early for that. We'll see how he progresses this season in Providence. Could be called up in the event of injury, or if he just explodes down there. But I really think he does need to go down there to gain some confidence. But way too early to label him a bust. Now, the third star last night is a defenseman who seems in line to grab the 7th spot there, and he's exceeded incumbent Jakobs Borrell in this area. Ian Mitchell playing so well so far. He had 21 minutes and 43 seconds of ice time last night, second only to Hampus Lindholm. He was a positive possession player, 53.85 shot attempt differential. He was on the ice for 1 goal against, but he co-led the team in shot attempts generated individually. AJ Greer, Ian Mitchell, Jake DeBrusk, Riley Walsh. Walsh has also played very well, all with 4 shot attempts at 5-on-5. In all situations, Mitchell gained the team lead with Oscar Steen. Ian Mitchell was a part of the Taylor Hall trade, and it was thought, kind of an afterthought there, or just trying to get anything for Taylor Hall in what was essentially a cap dump. But here he is, overtaking Jakub Zboril on the depth chart, and the Bruins will have a real decision to make on him. We saw the Ottawa Senators have already placed Lassie Thompson on waivers and lost him to the Ducks. He was a first-round pick a few years ago. They put Jacob Bernard-Docker, who was another first-round pick, Igor Sokolov, a second-round pick, on waivers. Or they're going to place them on waivers today. They could lose them. Are the Bruins going to have to be put in that position with Zboril? Possibly. Will he be claimed? Unlikely at this point. But Mitchell not only making a case to take that 7th spot from Zboril, but he's also making a case to play over Kevin Shattenkirk at times with the on the third pair. And speaking of the third pair, Derek Forbort has yet to play, but he will be in the lineup tonight. And we're going to take a look at the lineup for tonight's game against the Washington Capitals here in a moment. But just to recap the 3 stars, Matt Poitras, once again, excellent, making a case. You have Fabian Lysell, detractors, trying to garner attention. And don't forget, these 3 stars, not always going to be just 3 best players, but 3 kind of conversation topics at the very least. And then Ian Mitchell playing fantastic and looking like a guy who should be 7th defenseman at worst. So those are the 3 stars, and coming up here after the break, we'll preview tonight's game against the Capitals and tell you who's going to be in the lineup. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $500 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options like spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. You'll get $200 in bonus bets when you place a minimum $5 bet, win or lose on that initial wager. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. The Bruins are back in action tonight against the Washington Capitals, and it is their penultimate preseason game. We heard from Jim Montgomery the other day saying that the lineup for the final tune-up against the Rangers will be indicative of Boston's opening night roster. So tonight is really kind of the last chance for some hopefuls to make a positive impression. And that includes the aforementioned Matt Poitras, who will be in the lineup among a pretty NHL-heavy forward group. You have Johnny Beecher. I tweeted last night that I'm really a no on Patrick Brown at this point. Too slow. Doesn't excite me. I would really love to see Johnny Beecher grab that 4th line assignment, and he will be in the lineup tonight, as will Trent Frederic, Danton Heinen, still on a PTO, but looking to get an NHL contract. I think, based on scoring the other night, he's well on his way towards that. Trevor Kuntar, Jacob Lauko, Milan Lucic, Brad Marchand, Jason Megna, David Pasternak, Poitras, James Van Riemsdyk, and Pavel Zacha. That's a pretty opening night leaning lineup, minus, I'd say, Kuntar, Megna, and Poitras, Beecher kind of on the bubble. The other guys, well, maybe Heinen as well. But the rest of that group likely will be in the lineup. with a fourth line perhaps of Beecher, Lucic, Lauko. That would look pretty good, I think. Heinen, a candidate to play with Frederic and Geeky on the third line, although Jesper Boqvist, I think, belongs in the mix there as well. On defense, Forbort, who I mentioned earlier, with Matt Grzelcyk, Mason Lohrei getting another look, Charlie McAvoy, Kevin Shattenkirk, and Jakobs Borrell, who has a lot of work to do in order to fend off Ian Mitchell. And then in net, Bussy and Ullmark are the listed goaltenders. On the Washington side of things, Alexander Ovechkin will not be in the lineup, but they have some NHLers in there: Sonny Milano, Dylan Strome, Nicholas Backstrom, Tom Wilson, Brad Marchand's in there, so that could get interesting. Anthony Mantha, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Matthew Phillips, guys to watch as well. So it should be a pretty entertaining game for the Bruins tonight as they look to fix their opening night roster, as they look to put it together. There's some real candidates to be in the lineup, some guys who are maybe on their last legs when it comes to avoiding being sent down to Providence. And I expect a pretty solid effort from everybody tonight. The Bruins haven't looked amazing in preseason, and that's to be expected. I'm not really worried about wins or losses at this point. I'm interested in who's making a case to grab a spot, because there are spots open, and we'll have a much better look at things after tonight's game. Perhaps some cuts will be announced later on, or guys placed on waivers today at 2 p.m. So keep an eye on that, and we will bring you all the latest here from training camp as we get ready for next Wednesday's season opener for the Boston Bruins. Very excited. And I'm very thankful for all who have been tuning into the podcast since the beginning of training camp. Very encouraging to see people coming back and getting into Bruins hockey. And I'm very excited about this upcoming season. So stick with me here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Hope you're all having a great day. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again here tomorrow. Peace.